and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Toxic Happy Hour, where we are today joined by Greg Foss, the powerhouse from Canada, the bundle of energy and joy that we love with our mind and our soul. This is the Toxic Happy Hour, where we are toxic towards scams that delay the adoption of global sound money, and global sound money is needed in this world of clown world. So as my door was knocking and I gotta go get it, Puppy, why don't you get us rolling here with Greg Foss? I'm not kidding.
No, man. Hey, Greg's the easy one to hang out with, man. Hey, as always, last time I saw you was playoff hockey.
Oh boy.
We get to start a new season. Everything's swept under the Zamboni, so to speak. Hey, so I was looking today. You know how Bitcoin time goes. One day feels like a year. And
Okay.
I was trying to think back of the first time you came on our show, because you were on with us once or twice, and you came on with Adam. And can you believe that first show was only 7 months ago?
Yeah, you know what? I think I was on earlier than that too, though. Probably. I think I've been twice. Once with Adam, definitely once with Ben Lobb. You remember the conservative MP?
Yes.
But then I think the first time you had me as a guest was even before Adam, and I may be wrong, but nonetheless, it certainly things have moved. And on that front, Ben Lobb got reelected in Canada, and you saw that Pierre Poilievre came out in support of Bitcoin during the election in Canada. Those two guys are going to do some. Those two guys are going to do some good stuff in the Canadian Bitcoin space, in my opinion. So it was great that you had them on. I'm actually giving a presentation to their caucus this this Thursday. So they've invited me to be a guest speaker to their committee they're putting together on Bitcoin. So yeah, good stuff happening in Canada.
Yeah, and I tell you how that started with Ben, and thanks to you and Jeff Booth for jumping on for that. That was after the conference. That was after the conference, and Anders and I were starting this whole Canadian thing, because that's when Spaces came out. And I was running a Spaces chat, and Ben Lobb had jumped in.
Oh yeah, right.
And I saw a blue check in there and said,
"Good work,
who's this blue check?" A Canadian MP, and he decided to jump in. But I went back. So yes, Ben Lobb was there, and Adam, you did. So I went back to the beginning. The first time you were on a Toxic Happy Hour was March of last year, because I was curious.
Wow.
Well, because usually we look back and we laugh at what the prices were and what they are, but we went down into the valley because the price back then was $57,000 per Bitcoin. So since that 7 months, So since that time. That's how those 7 months, man, took people that were over leveraged. We got them out of the system. And 7 months later, here we are back with Greg Foss, the Gap Daddy at 57, pushing 58. Anders, welcome back, man.
Yeah, thank you. And apologies for that. It's not all in my hands, if you know what I mean. So sorry, especially to you, of course, Greg. But I'm here, and this is Toxic Happy Hour. It's like the whole concept of this was really like we meet. Craig, I'm sorry we're doing this too. But the whole concept is this is like we're meeting in the pub, we're grabbing a beer, and you know, we're just keeping it informal and educational at the same time as much as possible. So one of the things that Puppy was talking about with some other Bitcoiners on the Toxic Happy Hour Spaces this morning earlier today was this. And I feel that too. There's a sense of not revolution, but it seems that the pressure we are given by central authorities with the vaccine mandates and all of these things, and now we're going to jab the kids. And let's not forget that big pharma is not to be trusted. We've seen that again and again, right? But now it's about creating a subscription model for them. And I just want to say this: in Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, Greg, there are no more COVID restrictions whatsoever. No one's forcing you to a vaccine. You don't have to show a test. No one's wearing masks. Everything is open. Life is back to normal in those three countries. Yet you're looking at Canada, where you can't leave unless you've taken the subscription model, right? from Big Pharma with the jab.
So let's focus. So Foss is Norwegian. I'm not sure if I told you guys that, and it is. So Foss means small waterfall, I think, in Norwegian. So I applaud the Norwegian government for that initiative. You don't need to. I'm not very fond of our current leadership in Canada. So today's Thanksgiving in Canada, though. So I'm going to pledge to be.
That's good.
A proud Canadian and give thanks for what does work in Canada. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work so well, but markets have and elections have a way of fixing themselves. Trudeau spent $600 million on an election to win 3 incremental seats. So $600 million at a time when you can't really afford to be burning paper money like they're burning, but they're doing it. And then they win 3 seats, and then he basically goes into hibernation. So he hasn't come clean to the public that yes, it was a waste of money. He's a pretty boy. But listen, it's Thanksgiving, so let's focus on what's important.
We won't put anyone on the stake today and burn them because it's Canadian Thanksgiving, at least not for from Canada. So let's focus on the positives, Puppy.
Hey, yeah, Meme Factory. They always got the question. I think about if you're going after the monkeys or the apes, which ones do you fight? Greg, I'll give you 3 choices of who you get into the ring with first. You get Trudeau, Schiff, or Hanke. Who do you take?
So Trudeau's a black belt in something, right? So he actually is a Taekwondo or something. So that being said, if it was for Canada, I'd throw myself in the ring against him and do my best. But he'd kick my ass. But let's again, it's not about fighting; it's about rational conversation. And so then Schiff and Hanke. I was on Peter McCormick's debate with Peter, and Peter is clearly marketing his son. And his son is going to be the Bitcoin Schiff, and Peter's going to be the old man Schiff. And over time, there will be a logical transfer of power in that square. And then Steve Hanke, somebody found a thing of me today. I was on this. Oh, your buddy, the Wallace there, the Bitcoin or the British guy. And I was on his thing, and I had a bit of a rant against Steve Hanke. It's when I was out in Whistler, British Columbia. That was about a month ago. And anyway, some young lady pulled it up, and it was pretty good. It was a good little rant on me calling out Hanke. And Hanke is conflicted. Hanke's the worst of the 3 of them, because Hanke, on the one hand, says all, Lebanon and all the problems they're having in Lebanon, and he almost rejoices over the problems they're having, but then he won't admit that the solution is Bitcoin. The man is a really, really evil fuck. Okay. He is a fucking evil prick. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Welcome to the Kids Show edition of the Taxi Cab. Yeah.
Evil fuck.
Yeah. But it's true. It's true.
Yeah,
the central bankers know what they're doing. They're not that stupid. They know what they're doing. They know they're causing suffering and enslavement of people, so they can steal the value of their savings by diluting the currency, amongst other things. Puppy.
This is why I'm laughing the most at Hanke. On the one hand, he rails against the scenes out of Lebanon. Guys breaking down the fucking bank doors, not realizing that only $1 out of the 100 or 1,000 they deposited may be in there. He rails against the fiat system the entire time, and the Bitcoin system at the same time. You can't have it both ways, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Then there's other guys that reach out to me and say, "Look, stop giving them stage time." But the problem is these guys have massive followings, right? Yeah. That guy, what's his name? Michael Burry. Yeah. Look, he's got a viewpoint, but he's soft, and then he blocks everybody, and people say, well, don't waste time on him. The problem is, I think he's got close to 700,000 followers that listen to his advice. And that's the danger, right? When somebody thinks, oh, the guy got the trade one. And by the way, he's a horrible fucking trader. Okay. He should have stopped himself out about 10 times during his lead up to the great financial crisis. His execution was absolutely pathetic. He ultimately got the trade right, but his execution was horrible. So people think of him as being some sort of god. And at the end of the day, he did get the trade right. His execution was poor. I would suggest that he does some more work on what Bitcoin is, because Bitcoin is actually a bet against the financial system, much like where he made all his money the first time. And that's as simple as that.
I put out a tweet today, and I was doing a spaces earlier, and this is what I was saying was, back then people were crazy that were betting against the housing market. That those that started in the 2006, 2007 run, saying, "Wait a second, there's something wrong here." And now I don't know how. I have to read the book. Admittedly, I watched the movie over and over. I love the movie. You have guys that he actually went in or had an intern or whomever go in and read all the thousands of documents of shit that was in there to realize it. At the time, it was an unprecedented move. And when he goes around to the banks, and the banks are saying, "I'm sorry, how much do you want? Oh, give me 400 million. Or, okay, can you give me 8?" And they're like, "Yeah, whatever." And take all the pens and cups that you want out the door. We will make this product for you. That's my feeling of the housing market. That's my feeling today, man. That's what you're now shorting the U.S. dollar with the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. If there was anything more secure than the housing market right now, it has always been the U.S. dollar. And people that were crazy then seem even crazier now.
You got to compare. The interesting thing is, in 2006, you could buy credit protection on Lehman Brothers for 9 basis points. What that meant was it cost you $9,000 per year to insure $10 million worth of Lehman Brothers debt. All right. Very minuscule cost of insurance. And the people that were buying it, it was rating agency arbitrage. It was structured products that were just buying Lehman Brothers. They were selling the structure was selling protection on Lehman Brothers because they got this $9,000 premium that they could put into this leveraged super senior structure, and rating agency arbitrage and all of the leverage upon leverage upon leverage. That doesn't exist anymore. But here's what does exist. Well, it exists, but not nearly to the same structural and systemic risk. CDS on the United States today is wider than what Lehman Brothers was in 2006. I sort of find that quite interesting. Somebody out there is paying almost twice as much to insure USA paper as they did to insure Lehman Brothers paper in 2006. Now, we all know in 2006 turned into 2009, and that insurance policy on $10 million went from being worth $9,000 a year to being worth $6 million. That's how things work, guys. And I'm not saying the US is headed down the same path, but markets and a default event does not actually have to occur in a market in order for you to make money on your insurance policy. Because if you buy insurance at 9 basis points, and then 2 years later, someone is willing to pay you 50 basis points for the same contract, it doesn't mean that it means that the possibility of that same counterparty failing has increased, but it doesn't mean that default is imminent. 50 basis points is, not a sign of distress or anything like that. But you take that 9 basis point contract and you turn around and sell it at 50 basis points, you've made money. You don't need to see. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Greg, I want to ask a question here because I think not everyone fully understand that, and that will include me. So there's 100 basis point on 1%.
Correct.
I know not everybody get that. So if this insurance is to carry out like the event that you insure yourself against does happen, it goes from basically 50 basis point or 9 basis point all the way to 100%, right, in value. Like you get
no, because there is a recovery rate, so they'll price in some sort of recovery rate, and generally, and there was a recovery on Lehman. It wasn't 100 cents on the dollar, but the point is, until that event of default occurs, and it has to be legislated by the Swap Dealers Association as a true event of default, there is a settlement and a strike that takes place. And I don't want to get too granular, but the point is, you take that $9,000, you're insuring though $10 million. Then all of a sudden, what is that $10 million of insurance worth? It could be worth 10 million, but using a 40% recovery rate, it's worth $6 million. So, this is where it went to. Don't forget though, that these contracts are marked to market on a daily basis, because a 5-year contract turns into a 4-year contract, turns into a 3-year contract as time expires. Then a new 5-year contract is issued, and you'll have all these different contracts outstanding in the market on the same counterparty or the same reference asset. And this is really interesting, because it's just like having a complete matrix of bonds outstanding on a single borrower, but they're all derivatives. They're not cash bonds. So this is absolutely very important for structured finance, very important for calculating the insurance and the cost and what the market views as the potential default of these issuers.
So what has the price on this insurance, has it increased the insurance premium? Is the market saying there's an increased risk?
Well, look at China. Okay, so China, as you look at the spread, China's spread has gone from, call it 35 basis points per annum to 50, or it's 59 or 60. So there's been a 25 basis points increase, which means it's gone from $35,000 a year to insure 10 million to $60,000 a year. Now that 5-year contract has a duration of about 4, and I don't want to get too granular, but a 25 basis point move on a 4-year duration instrument means that instrument has accreted by $1. Okay. And that $1 though, is if it's on 10 million, it's you do the math and it adds up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay. And it's basically nothing more than a mark to market daily, changes with the spread. The wider the spread, the more the insurance premium costs. But if you had purchased this insurance policy at a narrow spread and it's now the market's bidding a wider spread, you can either sell it and crystallize a capital gain, or market to market and know that the market is potentially moving even wider after that, and you made a good purchase. So does this have any? Yeah, go ahead, Pubby.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like we're professional here and actually do any kind of fucking research for our guests coming in. But hey, I was listening to the conversation you and Andy Eschem were having with Peter McCormick. And one of the things that was interesting, and I'm not to go down the whole Evergrande railroad again. One thing I found interesting, I think Andy opened up with he was comparing the two. He was comparing Evergrande with Lehman Brothers and the total value. And I was shocked to find out, because the way you hear about Evergrande, how massive it is, that was only half the value, right? At the time was 600 billion to 300 billion.
Yeah, but don't forget 600 billion. No, okay, so there's two things to understand. You're totally right. Those are what's called on balance sheet liabilities. Okay, 600 billion.
That was my second question: is what was the difference between it?
So it all comes down to off balance sheet obligations, and in Lehman Brothers, lots of their exposure was off balance sheet, which meant it was in the derivatives market, right? And so there was leverage upon leverage in the system. Now Evergrande has 300 billion of liabilities. 200 billion is to the Chinese citizens, because they purchased homes from Evergrande. They took their money, but they may not be able to deliver the home. The other 90 to 100 billion is just bank debt and publicly traded bonds, but that's minuscule. And so the contagion, in my opinion, is going to be somewhat ring fenced to China. You're seeing CDS in China, we mentioned that, move out as it should. But is it a Lehman event? No, because the off-balance sheet liabilities at Evergrande was estimated by Goldman to be about 100. It sounds a lot. It was $1 trillion yen, but when you do that, or won rather, when you do that math, that's only like $150 billion in the so-called shadow bank system. So look, this is not, throwaway money. This is real losses, and there is some serious pain, but it's not, in my opinion, a Lehman Brothers type contagion where you imagine, and this is what I always throw out there. Imagine you were smart enough to purchase insurance on Lehman Brothers, but you bought it from Bear Stearns. And you're like, yeah, I'm protected against my exposure to Lehman Brothers, but oh, Jesus, Bear Stearns ain't looking so good. So then you have to go out and buy insurance on Lehman Brothers because you're trying to protect the insurance that you initially bought on Lehman, right? It's just the way the contagion in the financial system can work. And, you're living it right now.
I think that's a great point, Greg, that it may not be as, Evergrande may not be as dangerous a contagion as Lehman Brothers. I think, and I want to hear your opinion on this. I mean, personally, I think that the bigger threat right now is just the collapse of government as we know it, because they are hugely underfunded. They keep borrowing, they keep printing, and for that to continue, they need someone to continuously to step up and roll over the debt and the bonds, right? Yeah. So once China says, wait, hang on, we don't want to hold a dollar, like a dollar paper saying as you give us back the same amount of dollar 10 years from now, because you're printing it so fast that it won't have any value. So thank you very much. We're not buying your bonds anymore. Isn't that what could be causing the risk here?
It doesn't happen all at once, but the what's called the indirect bid at the auctions is coming in lower and lower, which means foreign governments are buying less and less of the new paper that's issued. And an auction won't fail all at once. It'll just be, you'll be like, oh, the bid to cover was 2 times, and then it's going to be 1.5 times. And then people are going to be like, what the fuck? It's only covered 1.5 times. Maybe I'm not going to show up, and I'm actually going to start selling my treasuries because I'm worried that the bid to cover. And then if the bid to cover starts getting really skinny, meaning like you barely have enough bids to cover the auction, then people are just, that's the way markets work. It's like, holy fuck, and you're like, you don't show up, and you're like, why am I the guy that's holding the hot potato, right? Because you're totally right, Anders. In a debt spiral, debt never matures. It doesn't actually mature. It needs to roll over, and that debt balloon is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's really, really quite scary. I don't want it to happen. I need to say this on every podcast. I do not want the USA to fail. We need to operate a parallel system called Bitcoin in parallel with the current fiat reserve currency status of the USA in order to do a network transfer where ultimately Bitcoin will be the winner. But you don't want it to happen all at once. It would be absolute pandemonium. Don't listen to these idiot politicians who say, well, yeah, debt default would be quite severe. Quite severe. This is actually very funny that they have no clue. They've never sat in a risk chair. For God's sakes, Powell is a fucking lawyer. He's a lawyer. Okay, you'd think he could have sat in a risk chair and understand what it feels like when you go to an auction and no one shows up. Wouldn't that be something, Jerome? Because it happens all the time, just not in the U.S. Treasury market. Okay, so learn. Don't listen to people that are armchair quarterbacks. Steve Hanke is a conflicted armchair quarterback. Kelton is an absolute fool who has never sat in a risk chair, but thinks she's some sort of hero because she wrote a book based on flawed mathematics. You're listening to people that have no clue because they've never actually managed any risk in their lives.
When you mentioned someone showing up to an empty room and talking, I'm just reminded of Craig Wright. It shows up empty room, and I have a cool sword trick to show everybody. So,
I don't really know the whole story there. I know there's a little bit. I mean, it's amazing when you get these. I don't know, what would you call them? Delusional, the delusionalists out there.
Yeah.
So, let's focus on how beautiful Bitcoin is rather than someone who's trying to claim that you can just see that the man he's a little bit off kilter.
Just promise when you have to give your big speech, when you're there in front of Parliament, any Canadian politician, you got to drop at least 2 evil fucks in there. Like, this guy's an evil fuck. This guy's an evil fuck.
Yeah.
Just bring the heat. Bring the heat, man. That's the only way they will learn.
I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids. All right. And these people are very, very dangerous. And kids don't know any better. One thing about being 58 is I've seen a lot of crap, and what you got to do is call out the crap when you see it, right? Too many people, they're like, oh, well, we'll give them a benefit of the doubt, or don't rock the boat, or, Hanky will pass away in due course. Yeah, it's true. He will, but he'll do a whole lot of damage before that. Right. And you got to call out this bullshit. And, I'm really, really concerned with Preston Pish and his value of his Johns Hopkins degree. Okay. So Preston, you didn't come on the show, but we're going to debase the value of your John Hopkins degree even more than Steve Hankey's actually doing, because we need you. He actually, and I love Preston, that he actually, he tweeted "Fire Hankey," right? And I think that's that is a whatever you call it, a hash or whatever that means, the symbol that should hashtag should get a lot more more repeats.
Number, hey, Greg, like from one boomer to another. From one boomer to another. We got to help each other out.
Was that you, Anders, that put in there? Yes, the Boomer Show. All our earpieces have wires.
Yes. I put that, baby. I put that in.
Mine only has one though. See, so I'm actually. I guess I'm halfway there, buddy.
So I got a background. It's a different military type thing we had, and you know this, Greg, because you come from a military family as well. But when you go out into the field, 1 is none and 2 is 1, and a lot of people don't realize that. If you have 1 of anything, that's a single point of failure. When it goes away, you got 0. So 1 is none, but 2 is 1. And I always think about that in many walks of life. You always want that backup. It's like flying a plane, man. You always need, like, I want 3 or 4 backup systems. That's a free one from Pubby.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, okay. 1 single point of failure. We have lots of single points of failure. That's not a good thing.
Greg, I would love to hear. I'd love to hear. So you're into Bitcoin mining and energy and stuff. You have your investor, I believe, in a company in Canada. Ted Cruz came out with a very interesting speech to the Mister. He tweeted the transcript. So it seems that some politicians are waking up to the fact that Bitcoin can actually be a net positive for pollution, and at the same time give a tremendous stability to the power grid. What's your take on the current situation with energy, stranded energy, and Bitcoin mining?
So it's this is a gift, guys. The Chinese Communist Party absolutely presented the Western civilizations with a true gift by banning Bitcoin and then coming down hard on crypto. It's their and I say crypto because that's the word they use. I don't give a shit about the other coins, but I do care about Bitcoin. So this is a gift for the West, and smart senators like Ted Cruz and Cynthia will embrace this. And as they do, you see things like what's happening in Canada, where Pierre Poilievre is not afraid to tell people he owns Bitcoin now, right? And this is not just because he's smart, but he actually sees that there is a benefit for the grid. So Ben Lobb, we've talked about this, member of Parliament, federal Parliament for the riding of Huron-Bruce in Ontario, has one of Canada's largest nuclear reactors called the Bruce reactor. And that reactor produces so much power, and you don't power up and power down a nuclear reactor as the base load changes. So there's times during the day, particularly at night, where that reactor is producing electricity that Canadians can't use, but we have to get rid of it. And there's times when we actually pay Americans to take our power. And I'm not that good at economics, but dang, if you had a lemonade stand and then you told people, you got to drink my lemonade and I'm going to pay you to do that, you're not a very good lemonade stand operator, are you? Yeah. So Ben understands that maybe, though, we should take that excess energy and we could mine Bitcoin with it. And at the same token, obviously create a revenue stream that was not there before. It was a cost. Now you create a revenue stream. You make the utility stronger financially. Most importantly, though, that same concept can be applied to many of the energy assets on the grid that will encourage the survivability of peaker plants and plants that only exist for maybe 8 days of the year, right? When it's really hot and your air conditioners. In Texas, we saw the grid almost fail because the peakers weren't on and the windmills got ice on them and people died. Look, peaker plants that 8 days of the year are used to peak to grid and provide surplus power. The other 357 days, I don't know, I'd be mining Bitcoin, wouldn't you? What a great fucking business model.
When is that going to start?
We're doing it. We're doing it. We are doing it at Validus Power.
So I got a quick answer. Anders, check the waiting room. We got another friend coming in, trying to come into the space. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, and from a political side, Greg, the federal side to me, the federal side to me is a lost fucking cause here. Bitcoin to me is at the state level. Every state will find it, and every state will profit. We got 50 states competing for the brains of Bitcoin.
Canada's a little different. We only have the provinces. We don't have quite. But look, this is an ability for Alberta to define themselves in North American energy square, because everyone's saying how great Texas is. And hey, how about them Aggies, eh? That was a great game against Alabama. But at the end of the day, Texas as a Bitcoin mining is not as attractive as Alberta, everything else being equal, because our ambient air temperature in Alberta is about on average 20 degrees Celsius cooler over an entire year. Daily average temperature. So as everyone knows, the cooling required for a mining operation in Alberta doesn't always need the immersion technologies and all this other stuff that they're bringing on board in Texas in order to make that environment more hospitable to the Bitcoin mining space. So Alberta, come on, Canada. Dang, we have some really good assets out there. Gas, we have smart engineers. We have the ability to use stranded and wasted energy resources, and we have a really good ambient air temperature. Hey, Andy.
Hey, Greg. You're and hey, all you toxic savages out there. Thanks for letting me join, and all great comments about the energy. I'm still learning, Greg. Greg, your knowledge base on energy is many multiples of mine, so I'm just hoovering it up.
And I'm lucky to have some really great partners there, Andy. These guys have been in the business for over 20 years. They are the pros. I don't ever want to get between the wall and the wallpaper. I know what I know and I know what I don't know. I'm just lucky to have guys like that on our team, and I can pick up the bigger picture, and they'll do all the stuff with calculating the heat exchange rates and anyway, they are true energy engineers, and we trade energy, and there's bigger things coming even on the ESG front. So I'm pretty pumped.
So guys, Greg and Andy and Pubby, you two,
thanks.
With the course, Puppy. With the current state of affairs and Bitcoin heading towards all-time high and way beyond that, as I think we all expect, and current situation of hyper dilution of currency, what's your expectations for the coming years? How's this going to hold out? How's it going to play out? All three of you.
Where does the number go? Is that the question? How high price target?
No, I mean, like, it's everything. Of course, it could be price, but also just how credible is the government keep printing when they're diluting? Well, how can they sell bonds? I mean, Greg is a bond guy. How can they keep having those buyers of bonds when they're just diluting it this fast?
All right, so I'll hop in with a few thoughts. So I think that we're still here in America. We still got the world reserve currency, for better or worse. I happen to think it's for worse because I think it's one of the main reasons that hollowed out our middle class and contributed a lot to the current political situation. Let's just say, but I don't see the dollar going anywhere anytime soon. Part of it is because the world is short dollars, right? Smarter people than me have talked about this before, but the amount of dollar liabilities existing in the world is tens of trillions of dollars. It's just huge. So there's going to be a bid for dollars, and it's still, still the strongest currency, arguably, in the world, other than Bitcoin, or the strongest money other than Bitcoin, or even gold. So, yeah, is someone in the world going to be buying treasuries? Probably for a while. I mean, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it for my clients. I don't see them as an attractive investment, certainly. But yeah, some pensions will buy them. Some central banks will still hold them as reserves. Even if China's holding less treasuries as dollar reserves, Japan will buy some. Europe will buy some. Other parties will buy them. Institutions that have to match maturity, manage the duration basically of their portfolios will still buy them. So, I hear Max Kaiser talking about how, the dollar's going to hyperinflate in the year 2021. That's not going to happen, people. Maybe in 10 years, I could see it by the end of this decade, but, the Fed's going to keep hoovering up as many treasuries as necessary to keep the house of cards going, I think, for a good bit yet.
Sure. Fair points. Greg, do you think that the dollar will still continue to exist despite the rise of Bitcoin? Personally, I don't see the dollar existing 10 years from now, but what's your thoughts? And Puppy, after that, let's get you involved.
So, yeah, great summary, Andy. Look, I agree with Andy. The US dollar will be the last fiat to fail. All right. We are privileged in the G7. We forget there's another 170 odd fiats out there besides the G7 nations. Those are the ones that are in trouble in the short term. The world needs a fiat reserve currency, but that's like a fiat reserve checking account. You need a parallel system. I've talked about this. You need a store of value, which is your is your savings account, and your checking account, which is fiat US dollar reserve currency. Yeah. Euro dollars and all the reasons that the world is short dollars will continue in the short term. The reality is, in the long term, all fiats fail. I don't know when that's going to be. 10 years. Not going to say that it's going to be that short of a time frame, but I do believe within the lifetime of my children that we will see a very well developed alternative platform or a network transfer. My hope is that the US fiat currency remains as the global reserve currency checking account, and that Bitcoin ultimately takes its rightful place as global reserve asset savings account. US treasuries are a strange beast. When I started trading in the 1980s, US treasury 10-year rates were at 14%. They're now at 1.4%. Okay. And oh my God, they've gone to 1.6, like as if that 20 basis points from 1.4 to 1.6 even matters. One thing I'm certain of, though, and Andy nailed this, the Fed ain't tapering if the world unravels. And the world will unravel when the US dollar strengthens, because that's what's happened. When the US dollar strengthens, emerging markets get destroyed. So it won't be just about what's happening in the USA. It's about what's happening on a global basis when tapering goes from 120 billion a month to 119 billion a month. Guys, it ain't ever going to stop tapering. Oh, excuse me, stop printing. The world cannot survive a stronger US dollar fiat currency. Emerging markets always melt down when that happens. The Fed is pooched. They're absolutely painted themselves into a corner.
Poppy,
yeah, I thought that was many years ago. They painted themselves into a corner. Yeah, how do you follow this up? Dear God, there's nothing left. Where do we go from here?
Wait. First,
hell?
I have a question. Greg, was that term you used? Was that pooched? Is that what you said?
Maybe it's a Canadian term. I don't know. Yeah, it's they're pooched. You know what? It's like it means
as in screwing the pooch.
Yeah, screwing the pooch. Excuse me, screwing the pooch. So they are pooched.
They're pooched. Love it.
Gentlemen, we rarely ever get a super chat, but we have a question here. Thanks, Eastside Tony. I'd love to hear the panel's answer on this. Asking for my blue-collar union brothers, is it better to save our money in Bitcoin, or should we max out our pension fund contribution? Yes, or why not? Or combination of that? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll take a shot as the financial advisor real quick. So look, pension, oh man, a few factors here. So first of all, if your pension matches you, that's free money, right? Some people have have retirement plans where if you put in a certain amount of money, maybe it's like 5 or 10 grand, you literally get another 5 or 10 grand free from the company. It's hard to walk away from free money, right? To leave that on the table. So that's one consideration. Second consideration is, yeah, most retirement plans make it really hard to buy Bitcoin right now. So, however, I would say that that's changing. Now, I can't speak for your plan specifically, but you might want to ask them, what's in the works as far as a Bitcoin option, because I think that we're starting to see more of that here and there. It's slow going. Third factor that people consider is, and I think this is extremely optimistic, I know some Bitcoiners who are holding Bitcoin assuming that they will outlast the IRS, right, boys? Bitcoin's going to, take down the nation state, and therefore you're never going to have to pay your tax on your Bitcoin if you never sell, because you just hold it forever. Or more realistically, although not that much more realistically, slightly more realistically, is that, someday Bitcoin is treated as quote unquote money and you don't have to pay capital gains tax. Again, very optimistic outlook. So I don't advise people to try and outlast the state. I think that's kind of foolish. I guess maybe if you've got your un-KYC'd coins, but that's not going to be the case for your pension. So I don't know. I say take the free money in the pension. I say take the tax deferral, unless it really is your only dollars to buy Bitcoin. So it kind of depends on your personal situation and how much you've got invested at the moment.
Can I take the contrarian view for a minute? First off, Andy, thanks for stopping by, man. We fucking missed you, dude.
Pleasure's mine. Great to see all three of you and the chat. I finally figured out how to work the chat too. So we'll see what happens.
It's like the Boomer Show, man. 200 years of experience. Greg, you can get rid of that 32 years of bond experience. This is the best asymmetric group ever, right here. Simple fucking math. The four of us. No, first of all, Eastside Tony, man, I love that guy. Because guess what else we do, man? We do Spaces chats. Eastside Tony is always there to bring the heat. I'll tell you this, man. If someone can explain to me how you outrun an asset with a 200% annualized return, I'm all ears after 13 fucking years. Because look, even if it's 100%, what else? You got an asset outside the system that even if it drops by 50%, you're doubling your money every goddamn year if you hold it. I don't say what else is there to say, man? I don't get so listen, let's make it a quarter. You're down to 50%. You're 50%. Man, that was the hard thing, man. I dropped all matches. I dropped my 401k. I said, fuck this shit. Keep your double match. You can't beat Bitcoin. I dropped it all, dude. That's it. That's my story.
You guys are making very valid points on both sides of the argument. I'm going to say respectfully that your personal situation requires the expertise of someone like Andy, because every situation is different. And do not do it yourself. If you do not understand what this following message means, then you probably need to consult a financial advisor that does. Bitcoin is a long volatility investment. 95% of your other investment portfolio is a short volatility investment. Equities, being long equities, you're short vol. Being long credit, you're short vol. If you own options priced in the stock market, you are long volatility there. But let's face it, how many people's true investment portfolio owns more than 5% in options? Bitcoin is the perfect hedge to the short vol asset classes out there. And I don't advocate not having other exposures. I do advocate having zero exposure to bonds. Bonds are now toxic. So this shouldn't be toxic happy hour. The word toxic should be bond portfolios are toxic. They are fiat contracts which are programmed to debase. If your pension fund allows you to switch any of your assets out of the bond silo, do that immediately. Don't think twice. You failed mathematics. And if you don't understand bond math, seek the professional help of people like Andy who do. Okay, because so many people don't understand two statements I just said: long vol and bond math. Yet they're investing pros in their own mind. It's not the way it works. Okay, guys?
I have a question about long vol, the long volatility, because that's when I look at a 401k and how easily people jump in. A 401k, this sounds brilliant. I'm going to start at 24. I just got out of college a few years. I will do 40 years until I'm 64. And at 64, I'm sure I got a great rate of return. Until you find out what those 401ks charge you in fees, in lost opportunity, I would posit I would take the value of Bitcoin over 40 years compared to any return. Well, hell, we can look at the return of Bitcoin over 12 years, right? Now you're going to tell me that anything in a 401k, there's a small company that gets approached by some shitty 401k manager that says, "I got an opportunity for your employees to make money compared to Bitcoin." The longest play to me is always going to be Bitcoin. There's nothing close to me. Am I missing something?
No, Pubby, you're not. I mean, look, I don't think anyone on this call is not irresponsibly long Bitcoin. So that's one. Two is, I'm not saying never put Bitcoin in your IRA, right? Read between the lines. I'm saying that probably before long, you'll be able to buy Bitcoin in your IRA. So if the question is, do I take the match and the free money now? Right? Mm-hmm. If it meant never ever putting those dollars into Bitcoin, sure, that sounds like a bad trade. I think, and I think most of us on this call probably think that as Bitcoin gets adopted institutionally, I mean, it's happening, right? It's right in front of our eyes. You're going to be able to put your retirement money into Bitcoin. Most people will. Now, again, everyone's plan is different. To your comment about fees, I would agree with you. I would have agreed with you like 5 years ago. So there was a time when Fidelity colonized, the 401k space. They went to everyone. It was genius move. They went out to companies all over the country and they said, "Hey, free 401k plan," right? And so companies say, "Great, it's Fidelity. They got a good name. They're not going to charge us anything. Perfect. Sign us up." And for a while, it was only Fidelity products, which are high fee, right, that you could buy in these 401k plans. that has shifted significantly. It's got farther to go, but I would say that in my experience, most people's 401k plans, again, I'm being specific about 401ks in the US, it could be different in Canada, for example, but I think most 401k plans do have low cost investment options. Now, granted, when that Bitcoin product shows up in your 401k plan, it's not going to be free. That's true. There'll be fees associated with it. But yeah, if you said to me, hey, no money in the money in the 401k will never be able to be invested in Bitcoin, then yeah, I'm probably coming to your side in terms of, why bother with it. But I don't think that'll be the case.
Greg looks like he's ready to hit something, so I'll let him speak next.
No. I think it's this is good conversation, guys.
Greg, one of the things, there's so many that I love about you is the fact that you're talking about probabilities, right? So and even though many of us here might be all in, you're looking at it from the standpoint of what are the probability that, for instance, Bitcoin is going to go to 2 million, 5 million, 50 million, whatever, and you're still owning other assets because in case it doesn't play out right. So you're doing balanced with a basis out of probabilities. Am I correct?
That's exactly the way I've always managed risk in my career, Anders. What people need to understand, and I saw something, this makes me laugh. Rug Paul irresponsibly long Bitcoin. So I assume that means Raoul Pal. Okay. So Rug Paul was irresponsibly long Bitcoin, but now he has a 5% allocation. I need to be careful. Okay, stop. Fuck. Dude, at the end of the day, most of the world has a 0% allocation. Okay, so first, you got to understand that we're talking to people that need to get off zero, not necessarily on Toxic Happy Hour, but most of the people in the world need to get off of zero first. Secondly, yes, every single day that Bitcoin network survives, the chance or the probability that I achieve my $2 million price target in today's dollars, that's my price target, $2 million US in today's dollars, but it's not 100% certain. So I've always managed risk according to my probability expectations. And I do own other assets. I own 0 bonds. I'm not short bonds. There will be a time I will be short bonds, but I'm not fighting the Fed and the taper and the 8,000-pound elephant in the room that can artificially hold down interest rates. Okay. I'll do that through Bitcoin. There will be a time for all of this, but right now, the people mostly I'm talking to, Pubby, I know how fucking long you are. I don't need to talk to you anymore, which is great because you took the oath of understanding sound money. Too many people out there do not. And that's my desire to get the big funds who manage pension money for the common man that doesn't understand how financial markets work. Andy and I would both agree those are the people, when they move to 5 to 10% allocations, the Bitcoin that we own right now, guys, $50,000 candles are going to be the norm. Don't fucking overthink this. Okay. And don't say, I'm all in. I'm fucking all in. Dude, you're not the smartest fucking knife in the drawer. Okay. You just aren't. It's not the way the world works. And you got to manage risk according to probabilities. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, we're in big fucking trouble. Okay. I'll always listen to other people that understand risk and probabilities and everything like that. You cannot, as a professional asset manager, go 100% in on anything. It is impossible. You'll lose your mandate to manage other people's money. That's the way the world works.
That's true, Greg. Hashtag here come Gap Daddy Foss, $50,000 green candles daily. Poppy, how's that Indian Pales treating you, man?
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. I'm thinking, man, I got a new Bitcoin game coming out, a new drinking game. Man, catchphrases from Gat Daddy ourselves. Asymmetric bet, you drink 5. It's simple math, you drink 3. I got a full fucking list, man. You guys can get in on this, man. I'll put the board game together. You roll the dice, And yeah, you're hammered about 20 minutes into any podcast.
Well, yeah, maybe that's not what we're out to do either, though, pal. Because we really want to help educate the world, don't we? Because that's what it's all about. It's allowing, and again, isn't this great? So we're sitting in a G7 nation, and we're allowed to sit around and talk on an internet platform where 90% of the rest of the world doesn't have this privilege, and they're fucking living day to day. Those are the people that we need to convince about Bitcoin, and it will change their lives. And it's the Steve Hankeys of the world that don't want that to happen that make me sick to my stomach. So we can argue about whether we're all in or we're not all in. Guys, we're going to do just fine. I promise you, as long as we have our insurance policies purchased. The rest of the world are the ones that need our help.
Amen. All we can do is talk about it and try to reach people, and do our best basically to spread the word and educate. I just want to key off a couple things. One thing I saw in the chat was, does anyone expect the government to come for our 401ks, right? Wealth tax. And when I talk to clients, I say all bets are off. Like, whatever crazy tax you can imagine, greater than 0%, speaking of probabilities, greater than 0% chance it happens. Do I expect it to happen in a big way anytime soon? No, but it definitely, it definitely could happen. There's nothing preventing it. And just to augment, Greg, what you said about never putting all your eggs in the Bitcoin basket. Obviously, you got to consider your personal situation, and even just consider the example of the few of us talking here. So, I'll just say it. I'm 40 years old. I still probably have a lot of working years ahead of me. Not least because I've got 3 kids. So,
was that 40 with 40 with an F? Like 40 years.
Can you believe it?
Fuck.
So I expect to be working for a long time. So still my human capital, right? My potential earnings is still a large portion of my overall capital portfolio. Now, for someone who's retired or near retirement, they can't earn it back if they screw up. So, if my Bitcoin goes to 0, am I ruined? No, I'm not ruined. It'll be real painful, but life will go on for me. But for anyone who's already retired, or mostly retired or partially retired, that's where you got to consider, okay, if I lose the whole stack, do I have the ability to earn it back? My guess is most people on this, listening now, watching now, will have the opportunity to earn it back. So you can probably afford to take, to take more risk on this. But yeah, everybody's situation is different, and it does depend on your earnings capacity.
And I need to, Andy, well said. And I need to make sure that Pubby, that we're still friends, right? Like, because I'm talking about the professional asset managers out there. Imagine if you truly were a digital asset manager and you only believed in Bitcoin. You go out there and you say, I'm a digital asset manager, but I'm only in Bitcoin. People will look at you and say, so why do I pay you fees then? You just told me what you're doing, so I'll do it myself. Thank you very much. So a lot of these guys like Rug Paul, and I actually like the guy, so call me crazy. I think he has some very good takes on things. I don't give a shit what his fucking Bitcoin allocation is. It's greater than 0. If he's not Michael Burry. Michael Burry thinks he's the smartest guy in every room. He ain't, okay? Michael Burry is too smart by a half. If he truly understood what Bitcoin was, he wouldn't be short it. It's the same trade that he made all his money on the first time around. But he's too smart by a half, and he's got a bunch of followers, and he blocks every single one that doesn't believe in, or has a contrarian view. You're supposed to read research. Hold on, Pubby. You need to read research of people that go against your view. You need to understand that you may be wrong. Now, your ability to go from a trade where you finally realize you're wrong to reverse that trade, that is the mark of a good trader. It's not blocking people. It's not calling, oh, these laser-eyed fools. They certainly seem like a bunch of cultists. What a fucking loser. Michael Burry is a fucking loser. He cries, I was on the wrong side of a trade. Fuck you, Cassandra. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, Canada. I actually have to leave in about 5 minutes. So let's wrap this up.
That's perfect. I gotta drop in about 5 minutes too. And yeah, I think that by the way, too smart by a half is definitely going on the bingo card. Just for the record there. And yeah, it's first of all, keying off what you said, Greg, which I think is spot on. I hope I'm out of business because of Bitcoin, as soon as possible. Well, not as soon as possible. It'll be bad for the world if we get hyper Bitcoinization, next year. I hope it takes years, but I hope I'm out of a job as a wealth manager, let's say within 10 years. Because Greg you're absolutely right that it's going to take a big bite out of my business if it succeeds. I'm talking about Bitcoin. And then the second thing is, yeah, it's hard to be an outlier. So like my average client has a roughly 5% position, in Bitcoin right now, which is outlandish in the wealth management space. Okay. My peers, I don't know anyone who has that kind of exposure. Zero. If anyone can introduce me to another financial advisor or wealth manager that has 5% of their clients' assets in Bitcoin, I would love to meet them. It just, people aren't doing it. So I'm already, believe it or not, pretty far out on a limb for my profession, going with this roughly 5% Bitcoin allocation. So
do your clients know that? I mean, I'm sorry to jump in, but do your clients know that?
They do. They see it on their quarterly report.
Damn.
They see. Oh my God, Andy, why do we really own this Bitcoin stuff? Are you crazy?
And, this takes me back to a fucking Greg Foss thing earlier, because he goes, when you're getting people he goes, it's hard, right? Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. It's easy when you have people and you're making money for them. You're the goddamn hero. When that shit starts dropping, you are the zero, right?
That's basically it. Listen, they were smart to put their money with you if you make them money. But if you lose them money, you're a plug.
Yes.
And somehow they got lassoed into putting money with you, right? Like people are just absolute, especially when they're talking about their savings, right? You need to understand what Andy is doing is absolutely revolutionary. And there will be a time when you look at a portfolio that is no longer 60% equities and 40% bonds. It's going to be 60% equities, 6% bonds, and 34% other stuff that includes a lot of Bitcoin. Yes, it's coming, but it ain't there yet.
Yep.
And the theory of agents is in the big money. If he's not doing it, I'm not doing it because I don't need to do it because I have the protection of all the people that are sticking their head in the sand. That's called the theory of agents. Go.
There's only so much I can memorize in life. There's a couple things. Andy, you missed it earlier when I talked about Lehman Brothers. I learned from you that Lehman Brothers compared to the Chinese company cut in fucking half. Evergrande. Yes. As we move forward now, I already forgot it. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what I do, puppy, not you. You got it.
Yeah, I know, man. I had my shot.
Okay, I hear you. I gotta go, fellas. I love you, man. Okay, Andy, I would do a regular podcast with you because you understand the challenge of getting other people to trust you with their money. When you need heart surgery, you don't fucking do it yourself. You go to a heart surgeon. Okay, when you need lawyer advice, you don't do it yourself. You go to a lawyer. But people somehow think they're a better money manager than the professionals like Andy. It's weird. Really fucking weird. Yet that's human nature. And they don't understand that people like Andy are the most important component of a professional wealth preservation and capital appreciation strategy. You don't get this by reading a textbook, you guys. You get it from sitting at a desk, and I'll say it again. When your sphincter is so fucking tight, you could peel a grape, okay? And you're sitting there and you're managing other people's money. And you're like, fuck, I'm losing everything. Sit there for 1 fucking week and you'll see what it's like. And then you'll understand what risk management is. That's risk management. You're managing money for your family, for your friends, for people's college educations. Don't take that shit lightly. It ain't easy. And when you're the Fed chair and you're a fucking lawyer, rather than ever having done this in your life, bad things happen. God bless you guys from Canada, okay? Love you, man.
Thanks
Love
for
you,
coming
Greg.
on,
Thank you.
Greg. Thank you,
Andy,
man.
please hang out. Love you, Greg. Love you, Greg.
Foss, you're the man. I really appreciate it. As very kind words, and everything that Foss said is right. Managing risk, having money on the line, it's a different. It's just a different game. What can I say? And I really do. By the way, I really do hope I'm out of a job. I hope Bitcoin. I hope Bitcoin goes to the moon in a reasonable period of time, and everybody in this stream, watching and listening, realizes all their retirement dreams and never has to work a day in their life. So it'll just take time. We'll watch and wait and keep educating.
Sure. Andy, Tony wants to know how to contact you. So maybe it's a good time to just, I wrote to him in chat that through your Twitter, I'm sure your DM is open. It's open for business.
It is. I opened it. I opened the DMs recently. I was hesitant to do it, but so far so good. So yeah, DM me on Twitter. That's cool.
Here's where we're going, man. Here's the scary part. I'm reminded, man. I know people may laugh when it comes to the 2008 comparison. I'm sorry, what? The 2008 housing market will fail? Fuck you, man. That's impossible. Will never happen. Will never happen. Guess what? Guess what's happening now, man? And they kicked the can down the road. And I tell you, one of my favorite scenes from the movie and from the book is this. You go down to the rating agency. That rating, she got the. I mean, how brilliant was that? If you're going to make a movie, you put a rating agency with blinders on. She was blind to the world. She was blind to the world, and she finally took it off and announced the truth of the matter. If we don't give them the rating they want, they'll just go down the street.
Yep. And the whole financial system, I mean, is full of these conflicts of interest. I mean, we see it. I'll tell you where I see it today in my business is one of my favorite bugbears is private equity and how portfolios get valued, get marked. So I will never forget you mentioned 2008. So in 2008, 2009, at the depths of the stock market downturn, which would have been like March 2009, roughly there. So you had quarterly reports coming out of the major endowments, okay? Harvard, Stanford, Yale, whatever. These guys with $20, $30 billion portfolios that they manage for the university. And these portfolios were and still are heavily skewed to private equity. And back then, the private equity business was like the real estate business in that when you go buy a company, you borrow 75 or 80% of the purchase price, right? So you do $1 billion buyout, you write a $200 million check or $250 million check as a private equity investor, and then you borrow the other $750 million. So what happened in March of 2009 is the major endowments all reported their returns, right? And the returns that were reported were something like down 20 or 25%. And the headline said, oh, isn't this bad? The endowments lost 20, 25% of their portfolios. But then I remember thinking to myself, wait a minute, but the stock market is down 50%. Okay. And the stock market, the S&P, is not that levered, right? So if stocks are down half with little or no debt on average for the S&P, like what should the portfolios of these companies that are levered 4-to-1 be down? They should be near zero, right? They should be pure option value. Anyway, the message was, or the lesson learned was, they just lie about what the portfolios are worth. And today, the quote unquote best performing asset class outside of Bitcoin, I would say, is probably private equity. If you look back at the last decade, and it's sort of, in my view, it's sort of a long con, just like this whole system of debt is a long con. It's going to blow up at some point. So you better have your safety money. You better have your Bitcoin that's out of the system. But that's just the latest example I see of the nonsense that goes on.
So let me ask you a question real quick. Because you can say like something like private equity, and it sounds brilliant. I can say, yeah, fuck yeah. what, explain it to me like I'm fucking 5. What is private equity?
Yeah. Private equity just means owning a company, but instead of the stock, the equity, the ownership, instead of that trading publicly like it does in the stock market, it's buying a company outright. So these guys raise huge funds, huge amounts of money. Most of their money comes from quote unquote institutional investors like pensions, like endowments. And they go and they buy whole companies outright. Sometimes they buy them out of the public markets, right? They do a take private, or they do a public buyout where, I don't know, what's a good example? I'm trying to remember, one of the major hospital companies got bought not too long ago. It was a publicly traded stock, and one of these private equity funds just came in and bought the whole thing. So that's what private equity is. It's outright private ownership of a company. And as a practical matter, they tend to use lots of debt to fund these buyouts, just like
Right.
most of us use lots of debt to go buy a house in the form of a mortgage.
So how does it work? A famous scene in The Big Short is they're at the casino. They're at the casino rolling some fucking dice, and then it talks about the derivatives, because this sounds to me like a lot of the derivative markets. Is this close to the same?
It's close to the same in that there's a lot of embedded leverage. So I agree with you there. In general, derivatives are based on leverage. And what that really means is for any movement in price of the underlying asset, the derivative moves more. That's true for options. That's true for futures, because most people use most people don't post a full amount of collateral to buy a futures contract. It's also true of your house, right? If you borrow 80% of the purchase price and the price of the house goes up 20%, well, you just doubled your money on your equity investment. So the common thread there, yes, is leverage. Now, derivatives take it to a more toxic extreme. CDS was the real was the real star of the meltdown in 2008, 2009. Our friend Greg Foss had personal experience in that department, and those instruments had enormous embedded leverage, number one. And number two, nobody knew who had the exposure, because when you're selling a CDS contract, you're sort of selling an insurance policy on a bond. And if it goes against you, you can lose outrageous amounts of money. Likewise, you can make outrageous amounts of money. That's what the guys in The Big Short did that you're talking about. Guys like Mike Burry, the Cornwall Capital guys that everyone on the street used to laugh at and call cornhole capital, until they made 100x their money in like 3 months on their CDS book. But yeah, so that's I would say the common thread on leverage.
So what would you say is the difference? Because people come into the Bitcoin space, they get the ethos, they get the understanding of why we need Bitcoin. When you look back, how would you explain a CDS, a credit default swap, versus a collateralized debt obligation, a CDO? What's the difference between the two of them? Because when they come into this space, those are terms they're gonna run across. And what I mean is this: there are people that are all over this space that are going to have such sway over them, and they're going to hear these acronyms thrown around, and they have no fucking clue what that means. Can you differentiate between them?
Sure. And now we're going to get a little bit technical. So a collateralized debt, collateralized debt obligation, generally speaking, is taking a piece of debt. It can be anything, really. I mean, it can be, in theory, it can be a mortgage bond. It can be a corporate bond. It can be an asset-backed loan against a motorhome. Okay. Anything. And mortgages, obviously, and corporate debt are the big categories, but it can be, in theory, any debt security or debt instrument. And what you do is you buy the debt instrument, so that becomes the asset side of the balance sheet, sort of like with a bank, right? The bank's assets are loans. Okay. And then against that asset, you create a new capital structure, which is a bunch of tranches of debt. So you borrow.
Whoa. Define tranches.
Yeah. Okay. Pieces of debt.
Thank you.
So let's use the analogy on your mortgage or on your house. If you go buy your house and you borrow 80% of the purchase price and you put 20% down payment, okay, you're levered 4-to-1 there. Maybe you pay some down over time and the house value goes up. So now you go to do a home equity line, right? Maybe you want to upgrade your house because you're not working in the office anymore. Or you're spending more time at home. Or maybe you just want to take the money out and use it like a cash machine, right? And go buy a boat. So now you put in a second mortgage. So now you've got 2 levels of debt collateralized by your house. It's the same idea with a collateralized loan obligation or collateralized debt obligation. You have multiple layers of debt, which, except the asset in this case is not an actual asset like your house. The asset is another piece of debt. So it's layers of debt with claims against another piece of debt. And then, of course, at the bottom, you have the quote-unquote equity in this structure, which is basically the last to get paid. And, of course, it also makes the highest return if things go well. So that's the big picture on the CDO structure. It's structures of debt and equity with claims against some other kind of debt. Debt on debt. And so it got, by the way, it got so ridiculous in 2008 and 2009 that you got what were called CDO squareds, okay, which were collateralized debt obligation structures against CDO structures against debt structures, right? It's like second derivative type stuff. Totally crazy. To your question, Pubby, about, okay, what's a CDS contract? So a CDS contract it's an insurance policy against default. And what it means is some company, let's say I am a bondholder against General Motors, and I collect a coupon on that bond, so I make a return. But I don't really want to have the full credit exposure to General Motors, so I want to hedge it today. I want to hedge it quickly. Maybe I want to hedge it faster than I can sell all the bonds that I own. Okay, I go to the CDS market. I buy insurance against a default by General Motors, and I pay a small premium every year, just like you pay a premium on your auto insurance or on your homeowner's insurance. And you don't really expect it to pay off, but if the company defaults within the maturity of the CDS contract, which is typically 5 years, then you get paid. You get paid a payout, and there's the leverage there is clear because let's say you're paying 2% a year or 3% a year for this protection, but it could pay out, 30 points or 40 points or 50 points. So you could make, 10, 20 times your money. And in 2008, 2009, the premiums on the highest quality debt were tiny, but they ended up paying out in a spectacular fashion because all these debt tranches were way overrated. Nobody thought they would blow up, but in fact they did.
They absolutely did. And as the chat has duly noted, Puppy built in his own question. He just disappeared. I don't know what happened, Andy, but it does happen sometimes. It's the toxic happy hour.
Shit happens. I got to disappear now, but it's
right.
Awesome to see you, Anders. Great time.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for joining in. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, glad you could make it, Andy, and it was great to have you and Foss drop some knowledge bombs there for us. So hey, man, thank you very much, Andy. But just let people know how because it was kind of a surprise that you did make it. So your Twitter account is not in the description below. Foss is, of course, but so how do people find you on Twitter?
Yeah, thanks. It's just Edstrom Andrew. So last name, first name. Edstrom Andrew is the handle. happy to chat with people, and I'll see you guys on the Twitters and the internets.
Absolutely. Okay, Andy. So I just want to give a word of warning as we this is the final message. Don't store more dirty fiat or value in dirty fiat currency than you can afford to lose. It is being diluted. It's the policy to dilute it. They convince you it's good for you, that they steal the value of your savings, because then we have inflation, so we can keep you in a job. Well, guess what? People had a job also before we created fake money. And look at Lebanon right now, where people can't get the money out of the banks. They shut them down. So yeah, careful with that storing value. And don't think it can't happen in the United States. In 1933, they took gold off the hands of citizens and didn't give it back. So that was the American rug pull. We had the Pubby rug pull. Andy, thanks for making it, and see you on the next one, man.
Thanks. Always a pleasure, Anders. Have a good one.
Thanks.